Okay.
I'm Heather.
I'm Beth.
Melissa.
I'm Laura. And Carrie.
Okay. So I want you to imagine that you are in need of hospital care. If you don't get hospital care, you're going to die. And so you start looking for the first available hospital, and more importantly, the most available hospital, or the first available hospital with a bed that's open. So the hospital that you get admitted to has a room with 7 other patients that you have to share, and there's blood and feces on the sheets, sewage piling up, trash, poor air circulation, and I'm going to guess that this does not sound like your ideal experience. So you can thank Florence Nightingale that is no longer the scene. So when I was in nursing school, I remember lessons about Florence Nightingale and her contributions to nursing. And I've always been interested in her achievements, and so I've done some research on her. And I think that her contributions are really important because they have paved the way, and they have formed the luxuries in healthcare that we expect and enjoy today. So in 4 points, I'm going to talk to you about Florence Nightingale and how she became a war nurse, how she recommended safe and clean hospital standards, how she wrote the first nursing textbook, and how she is credited with opening the first nursing college. So to begin with, in 1854, the Crimean War was going on, and that circle area on the map shows you where that was in Europe. And as you can imagine, this resulted in wounded soldiers that needed care. And at the same time, like we know, the press was getting involved. They were snooping around and watching what was going on, and they caught wind of these substandard hospital conditions. So the press started putting out in the news how dirty the hospital was, how unsafe and unclean it was. And so the Secretary of War had no choice but to respond by sending a group of nurses to care for the wounded soldiers and to help clean the situation up. So in 1854, when Nightingale was 34 years old, she relocated from France to Turkey. And in Turkey, that's where the military hospital was located. And when she got there, she didn't find a very good scene. So according to the 2009 epidemiology article titled Florence Nightingale, Founder of Modern Nursing and Hospital Epidemiology, Warren Winkelstein is an epidemiologist, and he says that Nightingale first gained her fame by leading a team of 38 nurses to staff the overseas hospital during the British Army during the Crimean War. And the nonfiction biography author Catherine Reef wrote a biography in 2016, and she says that Florence became known as the Lady with the Lamp because she visited suffering soldiers at night. And she carried a lantern with her, and the lamp remains the international nursing symbol today. So when nurses graduate from nursing school, they get a nursing pin, and there's usually a little lamp symbol on the pin to signify Florence Nightingale and her contributions. So when she got to the camp, the military camp, and she found these terrible conditions, she immediately went to work, and her second contribution was to clean up the environment and to recommend safe and clean standards. So if you go back to the hospital room I talked about with the overcrowding and the smell and the filth, she decided that she needed to focus on these key basics of life in order to get anybody well again and to help them overcome their wounds. No one's going to get better when there's bacteria and filth. And so she also kept notes and watched what she did and how people responded. So when she went to the hospital first, the death rate was 32%, and within 6 months she dropped the rate to 2% just from cleaning up the environment. And so what did she do with all these records that she kept? So when she came home from the war 3 years later, she wrote the first nursing textbook, and this is the third contribution to nursing. In 1860, Nightingale was 40 years old, and she wrote the first textbook that is known, and she believed that nursing education requirements needed to be standardized in order to have good effects on patients. So this is the Notes on Nursing, the first nursing textbook, and Florence had a quote in there that said that she did not compile this information for the sake of piling up the miscellaneous facts, but she did it for the sake of saving life and increasing health and comfort. And that comes from her 1860 textbook. And she also wrote in that same textbook that nothing but observation and experience will teach us the ways to maintain or bring back a state of health. And this is the reason that nursing education became so important, because Florence realized that the nurse is the one who's the eyes and ears for the doctor. And they're the first one on the scene if something goes wrong, usually. And so she really wanted nurses to have observation skills so that they could quickly detect a problem and immediately intervene with a solution. So that's her third contribution. Her fourth contribution, when her book was done, she took her commitment to education to the next level, and she opened up the first nursing school. In the collected works by Florence Nightingale, a 2009 assortment of her essays, Lynn MacDonald, the college professor, noted that the Nightingale School at St. Thomas Hospital in London opened on July 9th of 1890. This school does remain open today, although it is under a different name. Nightingale does still have a name in the nursing division. It's called Nightingale Division of Nursing and Midwifery, but she is still noted as her for her achievement there. Okay, so in summary, Florence Nightingale, war nurse, safe and clean hospital standards, writing of the first textbook, and opening up the first nursing college. It's important because it paved the way to the sanitary and the safe hospital and healthcare conditions that we enjoy today. If you're wondering what happened to Florence Nightingale, after her 6-year career in nursing, at age 40, her textbook was done, her college was open. She became a hermit and never came out in public again, and she lived like that for 50 years. She spent her time writing books, essays, papers, articles, and anything in the spirit of increasing the health of the public and the patients and increasing the nursing education. So in 1910, she died in the privacy of her own home. And so the next time that you need health care or you're in the hospital, you can think of what you're enjoying about that and thankful that you're not in that dirty hospital, in that dirty room. And you can thank Florence Nightingale for her achievements in making sure that that's not the standard anymore. The end.